Welcome to the South Ops Fire Weather Webcast for Monday, June 8th. I'm your host, Kristen Stewart. As weak Pacific troughing lingers over California, the marine layer remains pretty deep this morning, with more June gloom in store for the coastal regions and many of the lower coastal slopes of central and southern California. The visible satellite imagery this morning indicates that low clouds have once again spread very deeply into these areas, especially from Ventura County southward. With such a deep marine layer, we should expect slow clearing, especially closer to the coastline. Full clearing is expected by the afternoon, and there will be plentiful sunshine with seasonable temperatures. The weather pattern for this week is going to start with a typical June feel, and then we are going to quickly transition to a much more summer-like feel. Like I mentioned earlier, weak Pacific troughing will remain over California today, keeping very seasonable conditions in place, along with a deep marine layer. It will shift eastward into the northern Great Basin on Tuesday, and then high pressure will rebuild back over the western U.S. for the rest of the week, likely lasting into next week. This will bring much warmer and drier weather to the region, and very little in the way of marine relief. As a more typical June pattern remains in place, temperatures across the region will remain around seasonal averages through Tuesday. Highs in the 80s will be common across the valleys, except upper 80s to near 90 for the San Joaquin Valley. 60s and 70s will be common closer to the coast, and around 100 to 105 will be common for the low desert. Temperatures will rise quite sharply mid to late week as high pressure strongly builds back in. Highs will be at least 10 to 15 degrees above seasonal averages, with 90s common across the valleys, except 100 to 105 in the San Joaquin Valley, 70s and 80s closer to the coast, and at least 110 for the low desert. With little change in the overall pattern, temperatures will remain mostly steady heading into the weekend. The marine layer will gradually become more shallow as the week progresses, with low clouds and fog becoming restricted to the immediate coastline by that latter half of the week. Throughout the entire week, humidity will remain quite low away from the marine influence, with minimums as low as 8 to 20% across the interior, lowest across the deserts. Humidity may be a little higher than this range for the next couple days, but as high pressure settles in, these lower values will become more widespread. Enhanced westerly breeziness is expected to continue today, particularly for the deserts and adjacent slopes. For the windiest spots, gusts of 25 to 45 miles an hour will be common this afternoon and evening. Winds of this strength will not be particularly widespread, and most areas will see weaker winds. Otherwise, winds will remain mostly light throughout the period, exhibiting typical diurnal and terrain-driven trends. Now that we are moving into summertime, we will have to start thinking about the potential for afternoon and evening shower and thunderstorm activity across the higher terrain with the increased heating, lift, and instability, as well as the North American monsoon. As of right now, forecast projections are in favor of dry weather prevailing through the period. However, there is a small chance of showers and thunderstorms across the mountains and deserts Friday through the weekend from an early season monsoon surge. Confidence in this potential is very low at this point, especially because the overall large-scale weather pattern is not conducive for a tropical moisture surge. Remember, we would like to see a strong high-pressure area centered over the four corners for the southeasterly flow aloft to capture moisture from the Gulf of California and Gulf of America. We will have a much better outlook of this potential as we move a little later in the week. The very warm and dry conditions expected this week will lead to significant decreases in live and dead fuel moistures, especially away from the coastal plains. This will lead to a gradual increase in the large fire threat, despite the lack of significant winds. We should expect to continue seeing steady initial attack activity through the period, with a daily chance for a new large fire on well-aligned starts. There will be an increased risk of lightning ignitions if thunderstorms were to develop late this week into the weekend for the mountains and deserts. Confidence is too low at this time to introduce any high risks into the forecast, but we will continue to monitor this potential through the week. We will have to figure out how likely activity would be to occur, and if so, if the activity would be on the wetter or drier side. And that's all I have for today. Thanks for tuning in. Our next webcast will be on Tuesday, June 9th. Have a fantastic day.